Okay, for our pizza cake that we're gonna make, you have to have a few supplies. Some of them are just, your typical modeling supplies like a rolling pin. We need like a razor blade type thing for cutting, or an X-Acto knife, something to make marks, and that kind of stuff. Pointy tools always work. You're gonna need a knife to cut your cake. You will need a 6-inch round and a 6-inch square. The recipe for my cake is down there in the links below, and one single batch is enough to make both of these. You're going to need a cheese grater, various colors of fondant. I don't have specific colors, but black, red, yellow, that kind of stuff, depending on what you decide you want to make for your toppings. A cheese grater. Yes, we need a cheese grater. And my most favorite thing about this is the blowtorch. So this is just a simple handheld blowtorch that is filled with propane, I think, and it cost me like 12 bucks. I got it at a grocery store, and it's for creme brulee, and it's just really it's really easy to use, and I'm afraid of things under pressure. So if I can use this, anybody can use this, but you will need a blowtorch. And if you don't have a blowtorch, I don't know what to tell you. You're not going to get to have fun making this pizza cake with torch awesomeness to it. So get your tools together, and let's start with carving and filling our cake. And I'm just using Swiss meringue buttercream, but you can use any kind of frosting that you want to use to fill your cake. But I'm going to show you how to cut it and fill it and cover it. Okay, so first we're going to make our board, and what I have here is a, I think this is a 12-inch, I think it's a 12-inch round. Let's see. Yes, 12-inch. And this is just a piece of board that I get from my cake decorating store, but you can use a cake drum or whatever you want to use. And I've just greased the top with some shortening to make our fondant stick. I have our rolled out piece of fondant. I'm just going to put that on there. I'm just going to smooth that out. Just like that. And then I'm going to use my X-Acto knife and just cut off all of the excess around the edges. And that will be our cake board. And then when I'm done, I'm going to glue a ribbon, like a, oops. I'm going to glue a ribbon around the edge to finish it off and make it look nice. Like that. I will probably use this extra red for my tomatoes or peppers or something. So here's our board. And then now I'm going to print out my template, which if you're a Patreon member, it is down there in the links to this video for Patreon members. And if not, you can download it from my Etsy shop, and it is the Heart Pizza template. Heart Pizza template. So I'm going to print that out, and then we're going to cut out our board. Okay, so I have our template here, and I have our, this is a 12-inch cardboard round for cake decorating, and I'm going to actually trace just a little bit outside this line, because this template is made to print on an 8.5 by 11, which is just a teeny bit too short. So to save you guys some trouble and having to tape together two heart pieces, I just trace a little bit on the outside. And we're going to cut. And you could use an X-Acto knife for this, but I prefer kitchen scissors. They're just heavy duty. This doesn't have to be perfect because it's going to be a pizza. Okay, so there's our board. And then we're going to cut and slice our cake now and fill it and put it onto the board. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is split our cakes. And these these have been chilling in the refrigerator, so they should be pretty easy to cut. The butter inside the cake firms up when you're in the fridge, so they're fairly easy to split and they don't fall apart. This is my champagne cake, but you can see a recipe for the vanilla cake in the description below. And the round one, we are just going to split right in half. And this is going to make either side of our heart. So when we put it on the board, okay, so we have our tops and our bottom. Just line that up on the heart like so. And I'm going to fill this with some strawberry puree, and you can, you could fill this with just buttercream. And the strawberry puree is really easy to make. It's just like strawberries boiled with some sugar and water, and then you just blend it. And this is also what I'm going to use for the tomato sauce. So it looks really cool. Some of that. Oh, it smells really good. And then I'm going to put this on top. This top here like that. And now I'm going to coat this whole thing in a layer of Swiss meringue buttercream. Recipe's also in the description. And the reason I like Swiss meringue buttercream is because it has butter in it. And everything with butter just works so much better with cakes. This just we're going to put this in the fridge to firm up before we cover it in our layer of fondant. And this buttercream is just going to help everything stay together and be nice and solid. And normally you would do like a crumb coat, which is just a really thin layer of buttercream to seal in everything. And then you do another layer to kind of add some thickness, buttercreamy goodness. But since this is technically a sculpted cake, and it's a food cake, we don't really need to do the crumb coat. We're just going to do one thick layer of buttercream and put it in the refrigerator, and then cover it in fondant. And all of these lumps and imperfections are going to be good because pizza is not uniform. So the more like lumps and imperfections and stuff that we have, the actual better it's going to look. So food cakes are really fun that way because you don't have to be really specific. You don't have to be really careful. So I'm just going to make sure that I have a nice thick layer on the top so that it just tastes really good. Important part of any cake is not to only just look cool, but actually taste really good too. So, okay. You see, I'm not really fussing around with it too much. Right. Into the refrigerator this is going to go, and then we'll cover it in fondant. Okay, now we're going to make our toppings for our pizza. So the first one we're going to make is our peppers. And I'm going to go ahead and make all of these ahead of time while my cake is chilling. Multitasking. I'm going to take a little bit of my green. And usually all of my colors have a little bit of ivory mixed in with them, and that just kind of tones down the color and the saturation. So natural colors are usually not like super bright. They're usually, toned down to an extent. Mix in a little bit of green. I'm going to put this next to here. And I'm just going to fold over and squish. Stretch, fold over, squish, stretch. Basically, I'm just creating a very subtle green gradient from light to dark so that when we cut these into strips, they look more realistic, like real peppers. So we're going to take our knife here, cut these into strips, curve them slightly. Peppers are usually curved. And then I'm going to set those on a board to dry off to the side here. The next thing we're going to make is some olives. So I've got my green fondant, and I've added a little bit of yellow, and I've added some black to really tone this down to kind of this mossy green color. And then I've got my black fondant, and I'm going to roll this out into a piece that is as wide as my piece of green, kind of a square here, like this. And I'm going to put my green on the inside and then roll this all up together. So I've got black on the inside and green on the inside. And I'm going to put this into the fridge to chill up so it's easier to cut. So I'm going to set that aside. Got some yellow and some ivory. And you can make different toppings depending on what you want for your cake, but this is what I'm going to do. So I got my ivory, my pineapple, and I'm just going to kind of swirl it together. Just like that. Not in any particular way. And then I'm going to roll it all up. Flatten it out. I'm going to trim up my ends and trim up my top and bottom. Okay, so got that. And then we're going to use our sharp blade here actually to make some lines in the top of this. Like that. And this is the texture that the pineapple typically has. Right? And then we're going to curve it like this, like a little pineapple ring. And I'm going to put that in the freezer to chill. Okay? With me so far? Hope so. Alright, so now I'm going to make some sausage. So I'm going to take some dark brown and some medium brown. And I'm going to basically just tear this and kind of smash it randomly until it's just like really kind of marbled together, but I'm not really trying to knead it. I'm just really trying to get this rough texture. And then I'm going to break off little pieces and barely roll it together. I really want that rough texture to kind of stay there. And these are going to be our little sausage balls. Sausage balls. Like that. Okay. These are not going to go into the freezer. I'm just going to set these aside. That's probably enough. There. Okay. Onward. This is kind of a weird one. And make a mushroom. And the way I'm going to do that, so I got my ivory, which again, you know, even though mushrooms are white, they're not pure white. Or at least I don't think they are. Roll this into a little bit of a sausage shape, and then I'm going to pinch this end part, and that's going to be like the stem. Right? Kind of flatten this part up here. And then I'm going to take a thin amount of gray And I made this by mixing black with a little bit of ivory. Roll that just right in that little divot right there. I know this is so weird, but I promise it'll look awesome. That divot right there. I'm just going to kind of fold this end kind of over that little piece of gray. Okay, so you should have something that looks like this. Kind of see that mushroom shape? And I'm going to put this in the freezer to set up. I promise it'll all make sense. The last thing I'm going to make is some pepperoni. So I'm going to take some red, and I'm going to take some brown, because pepperoni, even though it's red, it's not like bright red. And the brown is going to tone it down. Right? And then I'm going to knead in some more medium brown, but I'm just going to kind of do something similar like we did with the sausage. I'm just going to tear it. Oops. I'm just going to tear it like this. Over and over until it looks fairly combined. And then we're going to roll this into a ball and into a sausage-like shape. And we're going to put this in the freezer. And the other thing that you want to put into the freezer is a little bit of white fondant, and that is going to be our cheese. And it needs to be in the freezer so that it needs to be frozen so we can cut it. So I have all my pieces ready in the freezer already. I'm going to go get those, and then I can show you how to put them on our pizza. But first, we got to cover our pizza in dough. So I'm going to go get that all ready, and we'll cover our cake. Okay, so we have our frosted cake, and the frosting is all set up, so we're ready to cover this vivid in fondant. So I've got my ivory fondant here, and I made this by dyeing white fondant by hand with some ivory and some brown and some yellow to kind of make it a goldeny crust color. Cover that all up. Not really worried about it being too lumpy because I kind of want it to be lumpy. And I'm going to trim off the excess. Smoother to smooth down the sides. I know you can't really see this very well, but just pushing it down until the fondant reaches the bottom. I'm not being super careful about it. So like I said, pizza. Don't really care. Now we need to make a crust area. And I'm just going to literally pinch the edge up a little bit. Just like that. And this is going to be our crust. Just like that. And another thing about pizza, it's got lines and textures and things. So I'm going to use my texture tool here to put in some kind of like lines, just some marks, to give this more of a realistic texture. Going along the sides, at the top. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to airbrush this guy to give some golden brownness to the whole crust. before we torch it. And if you don't have an airbrush, you can skip this part. But if you do, this really adds a lot to the design. Okay, so here we are in the airbrush booth. Sorry if things are a little dark. Got weird lighting in here. I'm just going to add some brown. This is my airbrush color. You can buy this online or like a, you know, food decorating or cake decorating store. And I'm just going to airbrush some brown color up around the edges and down around the bottom. And I'm going to leave this part highlighted, like as in not covered in brown. Okay, not too difficult. And now we're going to go add our toppings. Okay, so we've got our finished cake here, well, our finished crust cake here. And now it's time to add on our toppings. So the first thing I'm going to do is I have my piece of frozen, my frozen white fondant. I'm going to take my cheese grater and I'm actually going to just grate some cheese. Okay, that's enough. So you can see this this fondant looks just like cheese, which is great. Looks like mozzarella cheese. I'm just putting that into a bowl so we can use that in a minute. Put that to the side. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is slice our little pepperoni here. It's nice and frozen. I'm actually just using a little pocket knife here. Not pocket knife, what do you call this? Utility knife. And I'm just cutting some thin slices. You see how it's all marbled and stuff? Looks like a real pepperoni. Ooh, it's firm. You really gotta press hard. Alright, so we got their pepperoni here. And we've got our pineapple slice. I'm going to cut some little thin pieces of pineapple. Careful not to cut your hands. And then we've got our little mushroom. You see it looks just like a little mushroom slice. Some mushrooms. And last thing is our olives. So these guys, cut off the end. These ones, after you cut them, you're actually going to take a piping tip and cut out a little piece of the center, because olives have holes in the center. And this is a 802 Ateco piping tip. And I'm just going to cut out the centers here. So we've got all our toppings done, and now it's time to assemble the cake. Okay, so now that we have our toppings all made up, we're going to add on a little bit more of our strawberry puree for the tomato sauce. Just put that on like that. This is really messing with my brain. My eyes say tomatoes, but my mouth says strawberries. I guess my nose says strawberries because it smells really good. And then we're going to take some of our grated fondant for the cheese. Just Sprinkle. This is the fun part. Just like that. A good amount of cheese in the center. And I like to leave a little bit left over for the very, very top. And then we're going to take our pepperoni, lay that on there. That. And our little sausages. I used to work at a pizza parlor. One of the very first jobs I ever had. Was not my favorite. Making cake pizza is much more fun. Olives. Mushrooms. Laying it on there. No particular order. Our pineapple. It's kind of a weird flavor combination now that I think about it. Pineapple with pepperoni and olives and whatever. Whatever. It's my pizza. I'll make it how I want. And lastly, our couple of peppers. Okay? And then I'm just going to put a little bit, just a little bit of cheese on the very, very top. Now, the really fun part. Blowtorching. Woo! So this blowtorch, you use it by pulling down on the safety there. And then we're going to torch the top and the sides so that it is, it gets a nice golden brown. You see how it just kind of melts the cheese part? It makes it look like real cheese. It's basically crystallizing the sugar. And it will make it kind of crunchy on the outside. And that's okay. It's like creme brulee. It is just going to make it more delicious. Okay. I'm going to torch around the sides. Makes all these little bubbles and stuff. Okay, by golly, I think we're done. That is a delicious looking pizza we have there. Focus.